Lighting's okay.
It says you're live.
We're live.
Hey, we're live.
Oh, look, there's somebody. See? Drew.
Hey, Drew.
Hi, Drew.
Drew, I hope you have questions because we didn't bring any. So, can you guys okay? I'm not sure if we just turn on lights, but it's a warm day here today. It's like 80.
That is true. Inside.
Inside, yeah. Outside, I think it might be 85. But and it was my dumb idea to do this during the warm part of the day. We should have tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be cooler. Mm-hmm. All right, we got a Kickstarter. We're funded. Yay!
Now we got a whole bunch of work to do.
yeah. Go build it. I'll wait here. So I want to know, can people hear our little fan going? I want to keep my fan going. It feels nice. And if that's a bother. All right.
I'm going to assume that they don't hate it until someone tells us they hate it.
Okay, that's good. The Kickstarter is funded. We're currently beyond triple funded, which is cool. We just posted moments ago the 3 stretch goals. So we there was a big poll, and there's a lot of suggestions, and there were some suggestions that's like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
That's a lot of work.
It's like, and then like one of the suggestions was like really great, but it's like too good, and that was like, if we meet a certain goal, then we'll build the freezer wofati.
Oh yeah, I was actually in favor of that one.
And it's like, I'm kind of surprised we haven't already had a bunch of people asking us to build the freezer wofati before the wofati greenhouse.
Haven't we had people asking that, actually?
Well, I guess the thing is why are we building the wofati greenhouse now instead of the freezer wofati?
Right.
And a lot of the thing came about as suggestions. Like people were just, right. And we weren't saying like, basically the suggestions came about like, I wish you would do that like right away.
Totally.
There was a bunch of that, like unasked for. What is the freezer wofati? See, this is working.
Yes,
that's
excellent.
A question.
You've given
it's
us
our
something to
first
talk about.
question. So then, the freezer wofati, which is got the open end uphill, but it's sunk down. It has no windows whatsoever, and only one opening on the uphill side. And I think I wish for us to build it on a north-facing slope, and it's a little lower into the ground, and it'll be a double chamber thing. So what?
Oh, I was just laughing because Jake said, "Yay me!" Hey, Jake.
So so these little pictures that go with them.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
It's like, what is that? Is that a picture? That's not a picture of Jake, I don't think. That looks like a character
Could be.
for some show.
It could be.
Maybe it is.
Can't. They're very small.
Yeah. So the idea is that everything he said yes.
Nice. You look good enough to be on TV, Jake. We thought you were from a show.
So we hoped that everything inside of the wofati freezer would stay frozen year round. Like, that includes August.
Yeah.
And here in Montana, we get a lot of sun this time of year. How much nighttime is there right now?
It's about 8 hours.
Is it 8?
Yeah.
I was thinking it would be less than that. Like, it seems like it's dark at around 10 or 10:30.
Well, yeah. It's technically nighttime, but it's
like,
dawn or twilight,
it's like,
It's
twilight all night.
Right.
Yeah,
That's kind of what we're dealing with.
So, the idea is that we would charge it to be colder on cold days, and we've got a special design of a duct that is placed up high in the uphill wall, and then it comes down to below the freezer wofati, and that because of this shape of this duct, that whenever it is colder outside than it is inside, then the warm air in the duct will leave, and the colder passively. I mean, I think that, okay, the ground temperature around here averages 45 degrees. I think that if we're going to go on a north-facing slope, that's probably going to be closer to 41 degrees. So, and then if we shape things around it so that cold air coming down the hillside is direct towards the front of the wofati, while at the same time still, so now we're talking about 39. We don't have that far to get to 32. So I think, oh good, Kyle's here.
Oh,
Kyle.
hi, Kyle.
So I think that now we just got to chill it a little bit more, and then this whole thing about the passive cold pump, I think, is going to help us with that. And so, but yeah, again, we've got to try it to find out. It's an experiment. Okay, so that was a question about. Oh, there's a great one here. Did we skip any other questions? Were there any other questions until this one? Oh no, it kind of like pumps the heat out. Yeah, passively pumps the heat out.
And Eleanor Justice asked, would a freezer wofati make ice, or is it more to keep frozen things frozen? I'd say ideally it's definitely going to make ice, but we really don't know the level of cooling that it will have. So
That's why we need to build it.
if you put things in there in the winter when it's cold, then they'll be frozen, throughout the year. So say you have a large harvest in the fall, put it in the freezer wofati, it freezes, and then you can keep on pulling stuff out of that all through the summer.
And I think that the passive pump, the passive heat pump, the passive cold pump, I mean, I imagine people are going to say there's no such thing as a cold pump, but the passive heat pump, I think, would be something that we could plug up in the summertime.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. And so then once it starts getting cold, we'll open it up. I'd say we're in zone, I think we're in zone 4B, maybe 4A. I mean,
I think Fred's kind of has come to the conclusion that we're now zone 5 pretty solidly.
so I'd say that there's some debate. I mean, the funny thing is that in Missoula, it used to get down to 30 below every couple of years or so. And when our first winter here, we got to 26 below. And but we've had quite a few winters where it didn't even get below 0. So it's like it seems warmer here for mysterious reasons that we don't know what they are. All right, there was another question. So today we're trying to. Here comes all the people. We're trying to talk about our wofati greenhouse Kickstarter, which is now fully funded, and we're doing an open Q&A. And look, we're currently at 43,811. Maybe while we're talking, it'll go to 44,000.
That would be pretty sweet.
So it has slowed down a lot, though.
Yeah.
But that's kind of to be expected.
Right, that's the launch.
Still, it was pretty cool. We got funded in 3 hours.
Yeah.
That was nice. So now, I was nervous about whether we get funded at all or not. I don't know if you guys were nervous about it.
I was pretty nervous. Yeah.
I thought, because in the past Kickstarters, it's like, oh yeah, we've got like 80% of the stuff done.
Right.
And so we're just asking for that last little bit. It seems like it's easier. It's an easier to support kind of a thing. But we're starting this one off saying we've got Kyle's designs and we got a team ready to go.
Yeah.
We'll just distract them with shiny objects away from what they would otherwise do, and but we don't have a lot of skin in the game other than like putting together the Kickstarter. Takes a fair amount of work.
It's a lot of work.
And so 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And you were there the whole 3 weeks.
Was.
And you were there for a good part of it. You made the video. Did you guys like the video? Huh? So
It was okay.
what's that?
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was pretty good. Do an interview with Jack Spirko and get a bump. Jack's on vacation right now.
Yeah.
And see, Kyle liked the video. Jack asked us to do an expert council thing about the project, and we sent it into him, but he hasn't aired it yet. So, yeah, we're going to help Eskimos make ice, and that would get... Or you could make a Kickstarter that would help Eskimos make ice, and that would get funded. I think Johnny is saying something about like...
That you're good at Kickstarters?
Is that what he's saying?
I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah. I thought he was saying this is a stupid project.
I actually think he's just saying that, like, you could get any Kickstarter funded because you're so cool.
I thought he was making a comment about politics around global climate change.
I want to answer I want you to answer the question about that. I think we skipped an actual question.
Oh, right. I was trying to. So, how hard to convert greenhouse design into home design? I think that it won't be hard. In fact, so Allerton Abbey, when they were the first posts were going in, I don't think we even got to the post. They were marking out the land, and I said, "What? Why do you have it pointed this way?" And it's like, "Oh, we're trying to line it up with the sun so you can get that solar gain." And in the wintertime, and I said, no, a wofati is aligned with the hillside. So I kind of felt like it's important to have at least one wofati that has no solar gain. So Allerton Abbey has 0 solar gain, none. So that way we can verify that the annualized thermal inertia works.
Right.
And because otherwise, if it's got a passive solar element, then people are going to say, why are we talking about annualized thermal inertia? It's obviously passive solar.
Right.
And so I kind of felt like there's so much to prove with that one. And we got a podcast out there where we talked about the tests this last year, but we just got everything done where we could start testing like late November.
Yeah.
It was way too cold. The mass was not charged.
No. And we had floors drying in there, which were essentially like evaporative coolers for the structure. Yeah,
so we did some tests that were indicative, and it looks like the solar mass is going to work great and everything, but we've got the real test is this up and coming. All right. I think that a wofati is going to do really well with passive solar, which is effectively what this solar greenhouse is about.
Right.
Yeah. All right. What's the next question? What zone are you in? We did that one. Would it work in zone 3-ish? I would think so. I mean, zone. I was going to say that. What I was saying earlier. Oh yeah, I was talking about how we were definitely a zone 4A, and now it's like like Fred's thinking we might be a strong zone 5, which that's like, wow. Change. I like the idea of the wofati greenhouse. I already started a build using geothermal tubing that I ran 200 feet under about 8 feet of soil. It's an experiment for me. First greenhouse I ever built. Cool. Let's see. Oh, it says I missed the Kickstarter. Dang. And it's like, no, it's going right now. Go over there and support it. I don't know. Can we put a link in there?
You could type it in the chat.
Maybe somebody can. Well, here, I'm going to try and do it.
Yeah.
Let's see if I could do it. And that's another thing too, is that I thought we were going to have a different format today, and clearly I've got some stuff to learn. I hope you guys can see the link. All right, the Kickstarter's still on. There it is. Yeah, and great video, says Kyle. There's that.
Does a wofati greenhouse or just wofati require sloped terrain?
This particular spot, I think that we're going to. It's relatively flat where we're putting it, and we're going to end up putting it on a bit of a hill. I'm going to do this so that my hand gestures can get in here more. Look, see, it says the dude. That's from Sep. Sep gave me that.
Cool.
So I think we're going to mound it up a bit and build it on a little bit of a mound. Yeah. So it's going to definitely be rather above ground. But normally I would say any kind of wofati thing, you would be very wise to build it on a slope. But we've got so much experimentation to do with this, but I have such great hopes for it all. All right.
I think that if you have, land that is not extremely sloped, but you also want to build a giant pond, then that's kind of what we ended up doing. And the current site for the wofati greenhouse is about 8-9 degrees slope. So that's relatively flat, but it's still a decent slope.
So, the problem that we have is because I'm very emphatic that a wofati is an above ground structure, although I would have to say it's a wofati house or a greenhouse. I mean, it would have to be an above ground structure.
Right.
And then, but the freezer wofati is definitely an underground thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Hey, and then look, there's Vention.
Oh, we got something from Vention.
Yeah. And so Vention came out and he got the Millennium Falcon running. You know when they're going to get that?
We've been doing some planning so that we can get on it next week.
Yeah,
okay.
We got to map out where the dirt's going to be staged for the Hugel cultures before we test out the dump truck, but we're super excited for it.
We had some adventures with our well at base camp, which kind of postponed some of our projects here. And it's like we're right in the middle of getting the Kickstarter off the ground. Like, I think it was the very first day, wasn't it?
It was during the launch, basically.
And we had some, adventure, and suddenly that's taking up a bunch of our time right when we're supposed to be sending out emails and stuff. So, all right. Was there some question about how cold air pull out pipe size? I've heard someone saying the pipe diameter was too small. Yeah, there were people saying that.
Paul has feelings.
Don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Well, do you want to explain why you chose a smaller pipe?
I'm willing to try some bigger pipes, and I saw there was also this whole thing of like we're trying to do 3 months of work because to prepare for a Kickstarter, to put a Kickstarter together, it's about 3 months worth of work, and we were trying to squeeze it into 3 weeks. I think we did pretty good. I mean, there were a couple of things that we never got to that we should have, but it's like no. The date cannot slip.
Yeah.
And so, but I think we've pulled off a good enough Kickstarter, and so, but we got anyway. The thing is that a lot of people wanted to talk about the design, and I just couldn't. I just kind of felt like I got too much to do on a timeline. So. There were a lot of suggestions about bigger pipes for the destratification pipe, and when I talked to Mike Ayler about it, I was suggesting a 1-inch pipe, and frankly, I kind of feel like if you've got a 1-inch pipe, that it's going to act like a straw pulling thing. But if you've got a bigger pipe, then you start getting laminar flows inside the pipe. So if you've got a pipe like this, I'm trying to, and the sun is on this side, then this side's going to get warm, and then it goes like this instead of just straight up the pipe and pull from the bottom. And the bottom is going to be like, 29 feet down? And so it's a long-ass pipe. And so what we needed to do is to be like a straw and pull it all up. And yeah, there's going to be friction with all that air. But and so on the other hand, what we don't want is for the air to just start circulating inside the pipe, which is what I think you're going to get with a bigger pipe. But again, experimenting. Now,
we are trying. Go ahead.
We did have a discussion about it because there were people who were like, no, it's got to be bigger, and it's like, okay. And we kind of had this discussion of like, at what dollar amount do we hit? Because unofficially, why are we doing this? Why are we doing a Kickstarter right now? I mean, not only are we flat ass broke.
I was going to say that was.
There's flat ass broke is up there. But okay, what's the other thing we really want? Like, if we got enough money on the Kickstarter, we would
build a well or dig a well on the lab.
Dig a well in the lab.
Yeah.
And so it's like we've been talking about this for like 2 years. And I already paid somebody to dig a well on the lab. there went that money. And then I paid somebody else to dig a well in the lab, and it was weak. And then another time paid somebody to dig a well, and that was, so it's like, you know what? It's just time to my money flit away on little things. It's like, let's just go pro here, you know? So anyway, mixing that in, we kind of said like, okay, people want more of those well casing things with more destratification pipes, and then they want bigger destratification pipes to see which ones do the best. So I kind of put the question out to Josiah and Fred. So Josiah's going to lead the build, and Fred's going to lead Josiah, which sounds like a problem, but I know it's not going to be a problem.
Seems like a dynamic that works out well.
It does. It's like, don't ask questions, and it'll even work better. So, and I said, so we talked about the idea of like, at what point in the Kickstarter would there be enough money to do the well and all the expenses for all the other things, and to pull it off, and we would double the interior size. And so now we're thinking like that might, if we keep going, if the Kickstarter goes high enough and far enough and everything, then at $100,000,
right,
which the Kickstarter last year did 150, and right now we're about neck and neck with last year, where last year was. It could happen.
It could happen.
And then once we double the interior size, we could add 2 more well casings with 2 more stratification pipes, and we could do like, so I'm thinking 1 inch. We could do also 1.5 inches, 2 inches, maybe 3 inches.
I was imagining 2 half-inch pipes, go even smaller.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh, who likes the idea of 2 half-inch? Well, how about
that's an interesting experiment.
How about 2 3/4-inch pipes?
Sure.
I think half-inch might have a little too much air resistance.
Right. Well, and then, you know, we're not answering the questions that are piling up, but it does make me think about this. You know, if the outside of the pipe while maintaining the inside, and so you'd get more solar gain on the pipe, would increase the heat at the end of it, would increase the suction pulling it out. So that's one, you know, and that could be done if we find that just the open pipe itself doesn't pull a lot of draft, then we could install a branched head that might increase the draft.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. I like that. And so then you could have like a 2-inch pipe going all the way down to the bottom, and then you might have 5 1-inch pipes at the top.
Great.
Just in front of the glass. That one's a good one. So what question were we trying to answer?
Ventions. So about the pipes being too small. So basically we're trying a 1-inch pipe. Our plan was to try 1 and 1.5 inch. If we meet our stretch goals, we might get bigger pipes when we expand the area. But for right now, it's hard to fit more pipes reasonably into that.
We got a good question about Jean Payne, compost heated greenhouse. That has been seconded.
Okay. Have you considered doing something like the French guy, Jean Payne, with compost pile, heat water to heat greenhouse? So we have a Jean Payne pile, and I could spend an hour and a half talking about that. But the bottom line is that it's not passive. You got to rebuild the pile. And then like Jean Payne, his was a pile that was 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide. And he had to rebuild it every 1.5 years. That's not passive. And the problem that we're having with our pile, which was big enough the first year, and it was plenty hot. We got unlimited hot showers out of it. Is that each successive year, we have not built the pile big enough or with enough. We were like like the first pile, we imported a bunch of hay and spent grain, and that made up a lot of the pile. And so in latter years, we were trying to use dominantly material from here. But the bottom line is we're looking for something truly passive. and so that would mean no electricity, no wood heat, and no human discipline, and then no mechanical stuff to break down. Because I mean, there's all these solutions out there. It's like we keep, in fact, I can't help but think that one of these things up here is like, what about the guy in Nebraska
with the oranges?
And it's like, how many times does that come up during the Kickstarter?
Like a couple dozen.
Like 6? I was gonna say 6, but a couple
I've seen
dozen.
it a lot. Yeah,
it might be in other places, and it's kind of like, yeah. Have you noticed how he talks about like his fan that makes it all work only uses 7 amps?
Right.
I mean, what
We're
is that?
trying to do no electricity, no fuel, no supplementary heat.
Is that 1,500 watts? You know, what is
Right.
that? 7 amps? No, that's going to be.
I don't have the conversion.
It's going to be
in my
about
head.
800 watts. It's about 800 watts.
Right.
How is 800 watts passive?
Right.
I don't. I mean, granted, they're heating the space with much less power, because instead of a giant electric heater, which will use 20 times more electricity, they just got a fan going down into the earth, and they're just rotating it down into the earth.
Right.
It's like cool.
It's a huge advance. It's really cool, but it's not what we're trying to do. So.
All right. So
we-
that was Vention's question, is about the pipe size. All right.
And then we skipped how much actual growing space in this design.
So the back side is going to be about 3 feet by 8 feet.
3 by 10.
3 by 10, and then the front side would be maybe 3 by 7.
Yep.
Okay. So not huge, and then there was and of course on Reddit they had to talk about what a douchebag I am, and I am. I totally am, and I want to direct everybody to Wheaton's law of reflective douchebaggery. Okay. So. But they're also saying like, oh man, that's so small, it's pointless. There's so much being built. I mean, it's like, yeah, innovation's a bitch, isn't it? It's like we gotta find out if it works first.
Right.
Plus, I'm kind of rooting for like, can we keep will the greenhouse on the coldest day be 65, and then on the hottest day it'll be 85? I mean, can we pull that off? And then that kind of ties back into somebody was talking about like house design. Well, let's tap into a house design well.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, let's design it so that the amount of solar gain and the amount of, and then it's like, it's different than the greenhouse enough so that it ends up somewhere around 72 all year. But, I mean, I kind of feel like, based on just the wofati, which has no solar gain, I mean, what's the coldest it got? I mean, the heat, the mass wasn't even charged.
It dropped down to 39 at the coldest, and that was when we were gone for 2 weeks.
And that has no solar gain.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, if it had a lot of solar gain for the mass, and not a lot of airspace, I can't help but think that it would probably, especially in the wintertime, it probably wouldn't get below 60. But again, we got to test.
Yeah.
Right.
We gotta try it and see how we do, and then we can start talking about something far more significant.
Right.
Plus, our needs at this site right now are not significant, and plus, for growing food, and that's what a lot of people keep thinking about. It's like, I want to grow all this food, and I kind of think like, I'd rather come up with something that's got full outdoor sunlight. And that's another possible Kickstarter in the future, is the lemon tree site. The outdoor, the lemon tree that's outdoors all year long in Montana.
That would be super cool.
All right.
Vention says, I see what you mean on the pipe size. Thanks. I hope to be there for some of the construction. Yeah, that would be really cool.
We're kind of dependent on it. So, all right. Did I skip any questions? How much the actual growing space? The Jean Payne thing? Okay. Message retracted. Hey, I didn't know that was an option. Let's see. Is Alameda, California really Zone 9 internet info? Thanks, Paul, and all for your info and all you do. Oh, okay. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Alameda, California is really Zone 9.
I have no idea either.
Okay.
There's a compost pile. It won't be passive.
Oh,
Agreed.
see, he's answered my question. Thank you, Jim.
Zena says, I would like a larger window. How many tomato plants do you want to grow behind the window?
Well, keep in mind, a tomato plant is perennial.
Right.
They grow to like 5 years old. And so you start saying how many tomato plants. It's like, how long are you going to let that thing live?
Right, yeah, I've seen them pretty huge.
They get giant. They get
so like
enormous.
one, and it will live forever.
Well, 5 years. 5 years.
Okay.
5 years.
Forever.
Okay.
It says how many do you want to grow? I want it to live forever.
Well, of course, you want to have some polyculture going on. So,
Totally.
in something the size of what we're doing, I don't think you want to grow more than one. Plus, on the back side, that's for gray water. I'm thinking we're not going to grow any food plants in the gray water stuff.
That is what we have decided on. Yeah.
Okay. Have you guys picked your species yet?
No.
No. Well, we're gonna have a design meeting with Art Ludwig.
Yeah.
And he's gonna have some thoughts, but of course he's down in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
Josiah, you've been corresponding, or maybe you haven't. I don't know. Have you picked a species? Because I said no.
Reeds, rushes, cattails.
Okay.
Yeah.
grains, grasses.
Those are all wetland plants. So it's
Right.
when choosing the most likely the kind of gray water system that we were going to do would be considered a constructed wetland, which is important because the roots of the plant are actually inundated with the water. And then when you're doing that, it's important to use wetland species because they take the sun energy, hits their leaves, and they use that to actually oxygenate the gray water in this scenario. And that's why they're so effective at processing it, is that they turn it from the potential of an anaerobic bog to something that is, suitable for aerobic decomposition, all kinds of life that's going to live in their rhizosphere that they're aerating, and that's how the gray water gets processed. So if we end up going with a non-wetland type, more like a mulch basin type, with plants that would normally grow in just normal soil, that will not be inundated, and so it could be any number of species.
So I think tropical species should work for us because I don't think it's going to get very cold. I mean, by the time we're done building it, it'll be September, which means we won't have charged the mass very much.
Same song, different verse. Yeah.
But there's going to be so much solar gain throughout the winter.
Right.
It'll probably be just fine.
Right.
So
Let's hope so.
I think an important thing to point out is that with the wofati, it is really hard to change the interior temperature of the wofati. And so when we have a really hot day, everybody wants to go inside the wofati. And I think even on a really cold day, a bitter cold day,
It
you
feels
just go
very warm in there.
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of like, I guess, when we're talking about the idea of the sun hitting it, and it's like, because like some greenhouses, they'll hit 140 degrees.
Right.
I imagine that with a long, cold night in the winter here, and only 6 to 8 hours of sun in the day, I don't imagine it could possibly get very hot inside.
Right.
I think it's like a regular greenhouse, 140 here in Montana.
Right.
But then this one, it'll just the mass will just suck up all that extra heat, and it'll be maybe 75 or 80 inside.
I have a very hard time imagining it.
There's just so much
strong
mass.
surprise
There's
to
not
me.
going to be very
Yeah.
much diurnal swing.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, where are we at? Was this the tomato plants? The John Payne's video, compost? Are you talking about the well casing or the thermosiphon? Compost. I'm familiar with John Payne. How many pipe holes? Okay, so as is, the current design is that we're going to put 2 well casings in, and they're going to sit at the bottom of the trench. So Ayler's design is a trench design with a trench below the trench. So you're going to have a trench that's 3 feet deep for you to walk in, and then you're going to have a trench that's 5 feet deep below that. So you'll have this wooden walkway over the trench. So that way, if the greenhouse air starts to become cold, like, an Ehlers examples always say, suppose that your ground temperature is a constant 50 degrees. And so let's just use that for quickie math. So then, like, let's suppose that your temperature, because it's nighttime, the temperature inside the greenhouse becomes 40, it's going to sink into the trench. And then the air in the trench is 50, so it's going to rise. And so what happens is that there's this constant exchange going on, which is going to make it so that your air temperature, and I want to start off by saying the words in theory, won't be able to drop below 50. But of course, if your volume of air inside gets big enough and your trench is small enough, then yeah, you're going to be able to overwhelm that thing. And it's not going to be exactly 50. It'll probably be closer to 47 or something like that. But then we want to take it a little bit further, and we're going to add in these well casings that are 20 feet long. So we're going to extend the trench down another 20 feet, although I think there's going to need to be at least a little bit of a lip on the edge of that, so that way dirt is less likely to go down into the hole. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the destratification pipe down in there. So hopefully we're setting the temperature, we're changing it from the theoretical 50, which around here will be closer to 45, to possibly something like 70 or 75. All right, I don't even remember what the question was.
Neither do I, but let's see if we've missed any. Oh, Kyle asked, are you talking about the well casing or the thermosiphon? So I think you probably just clarified that.
So Vention is saying the 7 amps we were talking about earlier, if it's 220, that's 1,540 watts. But I'm gonna guess it's 120, which he says is 840 watts.
So
my guess was
close.
800.
Yeah.
That was pretty close.
How many pipe holes will you drill or dig? 2, unless we hit the stretch goal, in which case 4.
Right. So these well casings are 6 inches in diameter and 20 feet long. And we're just planning on burying 2 of them perfectly vertically.
Right.
And we have an excavator with a fresh, brand new, well, not a brand new bucket, but it's our old bucket that's been totally reworked. And that was expensive. Let's not bring that up. Who brought that up?
You did, Paul.
Jake Robinson says you might have to AC, and that's something that I'm super curious about.
How much AC do we need in the wofatis?
So, because this is oriented for solar gain, what we're trying to do primarily is to keep it warm all winter long, because that's the problem we're solving for ourselves with gray water. However, if we find ourselves in the summer and it has some decent solar gain still, Jake is suggesting that we might need to either vent or do something to keep that temperature from overheating. And I've thought about this for a while. I'm no expert, but I think that the mass is going to buffer that. But we'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah, I think a big part of this is that we've got to do the experiment in order to have the answers. So, we did the wofati experiment. This upcoming winter is going to be the big test for Allerton Abbey. And but last year we got some indicative results that basically support that there's a very good chance that what we expect to happen will happen. But whenever you use annualized thermal inertia, it can take 3 to 5 years until the temperature really settles in. So like if Allerton Abbey drops to as low as 50 this upcoming winter, it's possible that 5 winters later, it'll have an even colder winter, but it never got below 60.
Of myself and the center gentleman having the exact same COVID haircut right now. he always looks like this.
Good taste.
All right. Let's see. Oh, do you have an idea of how much gray water it will manage, planning to measure it?
We've done some calculations on our personal water consumption, and we're building the gray water system to manage 30 to 50 gallons per day, which is not a whole lot by most standards, but we just don't use a whole lot of water for the house. You know, a lot of our water use, it doesn't even become gray water. And so that's, we've reduced our water consumption to the point where it's not a problem. And then the other thing is that even if the system is built to handle, say, 50 gallons, and we end up putting 60 gallons through it, the water that comes out at the end is not going to be, it's not going to be like full-on gray water. And at that point, it's going to go into more biologically active soil once it's processed in the greenhouse. And so there is an opportunity where, like, you know, if we ended up deciding to process more gray water through it, it might end up that, like, the last bit of processing might happen outside the greenhouse, whether that's going to be in spring or during a winter melt-off period. But I think that with a constructed wetland system, it's about 1 square foot of growing space per gallon of daily gray water use. And I've seen systems on like systems that work on YouTube that are smaller than that. But I think we're going to try to stick to the one gallon per square foot.
Okay. Yeah, the designs that we've talked about so far are configured in such a way that if there's a surge, a big surge all at once, that suddenly the water that goes out the other end will be whiter water rather than white water. Right. And we're, you know, but yeah, this is not a big gray water system. This is, I mean, it's experimental in so many different ways.
Right.
So I'm not too concerned. I'm not worried about it.
No.
All right. Growing space then is 3x7. Yes, that's for like growing food stuff.
Right.
There's a bigger growing space that's for the gray water system. Oh, and then Kyle says the front growing space by the window is 3x6. So Kyle would have the much more accurate numbers. So Kyle is making the plans, and we hope to have a more interactive online thing, but maybe there's somebody who will circle back and teach me how to use this YouTube stuff. I know that for the rewards on the Kickstarter, that our plan is to use Zoom, and I use Zoom all the time, and especially with big groups of people. So we used YouTube because it seemed like a fun thing to try out and see how it is. All right. Vention says, that's such an exciting design, kind of lit a fire in my chest. That power can drive a guy forward almost without effort. By the way, Paul, are you keeping my favorite hat safe for me?
Uh-oh. He left his hat. Oh, you found it?
It's safe.
It's
Excellent.
safe. All right. All right.
We'll check on that.
Yes. All right. The growing space for the back is 10 feet by 3.5 feet. That's from Kyle.
That's from Kyle.
In the current design, subject to change, because we are going to be doing 3 design meetings like immediately after the Kickstarter. And we're going to do it in that participatory Zoom-like thing.
Right.
So then Kyle will actually have a voice rather than just being forced to type, and we can look at his screen and stuff. And one of the design meetings is going to be with Art Ludwig.
Yeah. To
make sure that we really got the gray water stuff done correctly.
Right. He wrote Creating an Oasis with Gray Water.
Yeah.
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 He's cool.
Yeah. The big popular gray water book.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other people I'm talking to, big names in permaculture, that I'm hoping to get lined up for some of the other design meetings, but they've got some other stuff they're dealing with right now, and hopefully we'll see how it goes.
Vention also asks, is the gray water going to be able to flow into the greenhouse without a pump? Yes, it's all going to be gravity fed, essentially. We've got enough drop that should work out.
Into the greenhouse and out of the greenhouse.
Out of the greenhouse, yes.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure it, would eventually leave.
Totally passive.
Totally passive.
We're looking for a completely passive design here. All right.
You're going to excavate the holes, not drill them.
That is correct. We've got a little hand drill, and I don't know. We got a bit on it that might be 1.5 feet long. I don't think that's enough. Oh wait, we've got that post hole digger that looks like a drill.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that digs a hole about 3.5 feet deep or so.
Yeah.
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 We could drill a bunch of them in a circle so that we could stand in it and then just continue to drill deeper and deeper. Yes, we're going to excavate them. We don't have a good way to do it otherwise.
Yeah, if I don't know what would be a good way, because I want to make lots of these holes, but the excavator digs holes mighty quick.
So fast.
Yeah, so it's kind of easy to just say, let's just do that. All right. You're going to excavate the holes, not drill them. Total depth is 3 + 5 + 20 = 28 feet.
Right.
That sounds about right.
Do you think the temps would stay relatively the same in other parts of the country, like, say, Tennessee?
Well, the answer to that question is the same as the answer to nearly all questions.
It depends.
It depends. And so,
yeah.
So, here we are in Montana, and we're kind of we're designing this and building it with a whole bunch, lots of experiments all happening at once. But in Tennessee, the
45.
Yeah. And so, is it going to end up being a lot?
It seems like March they're hitting into the 70s, and they've got 70s all the way up through November. So you have a shorter cold period, which I think that this design could be adapted to suit that environment. I'm not entirely sure right now what I would do to adapt it for a warmer climate, but the design basically relies on earth and thermal mass to for some of that warmth from the summer through the winter, and so you could definitely do that in Tennessee because you have warmth in the summer and cold in the winter. So
right, in my climate back home, I think this would not be the same temperatures.
Where are you back home?
Oh, Gulf Coast of Texas, tropical or subtropical, not actually tropical environment, but we don't have much of a diurnal swing, and we barely have a winter, so I just don't think this design would work there very well at all as is.
How much do the well casings cost each? I don't know. Does anybody have an answer for that? I've never bought well casings before.
I haven't gotten to pricing them. I've bought them in the past, but they were PVC and they were for 30-foot wells.
Right. I always kind of thought that this 20-foot pipe was relatively cheap. I'm going to just make a guess of $40 a stick.
I think the last time that I bought steel well casing, it was $60 a stick. But the price of steel might have been higher back then.
I don't know. I'm just making wild guesses. I'm just kind of thinking about it's going to weigh a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now we've been funded. It's a good time to start shopping.
Yeah. Now that we know we're going to get the money, we can start actually ordering supplies.
And we don't need anything that's fresh and sparkly clean.
No, we try to get reused
if we had
materials
something
as much as possible.
Yeah. So if we had something that was a little dinged up, a little rusty, that'd probably be all right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. You can't run AC in greenhouse. That is not airtight. And if it is airtight, then you also have to constantly remove excess moisture. I am concerned about the moisture.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm thinking of is an air-to-air heat exchanger. And so basically to take maybe a 2-inch pipe and blacken it. And then and then there's a piece of metal that goes down the middle of the pipe. And then what we do is that so I got to do this where everybody can see it. So you got the pipe, and then there's a piece of metal going down the middle of the pipe. And then on this side of the pipe, it's going to go to the outside. And then on the top of the pipe on that side, it goes to the inside. And then on this side of the pipe, the bottom is to the inside, and then the top is to the outside. So then as the sun hits it, the air on both sides is moved up, and then the cooler air outside is pulled inside, and then there's an exchange of temperature with the stuff that's on its way out. So that way the exhaust air ends up being chilled on its way out, and then the incoming air is significantly warmed. So that way it's an air-to-air heat exchanger that's totally passive. But
we're also going to see a lot of condensation on the inside of those well casings, at least during part of the year.
Yeah.
and
so that'll be interesting to see how that works.
Maybe some of the fog harps.
Oh yeah, fog harps.
What would we do with the fog harps? Just put the water back into the soil?
Well, it could go into the greywater basin and then out that way.
Yeah.
I think so. Just removing it from the air is the main thing.
All right. We almost got to the end.
Oh.
And then there was one more. Yeah.
Would a round/dome-shaped structure for the front give you more space for plants with less air volume to heat/cool? Similar idea might give more contact area with the mass behind. That would be hard to build out of glass.
Well, rather than a dome shape, so like right now we've got kind of this, flat shape here, but it might be possible to do something like this, and then so that way the whole greenhouse part might be able to come out a little bit more to get a little bit bigger space. But I kind of feel like right now we gotta. I think that this falls into the space of like we gotta build one that's simple to test, but that would possibly be an idea for future variation.
Well, I mean, you want a large flat surface of glass for the sun to actually go through, whereas like you wouldn't want the whole thing to be rounded or faceted and domed.
The sun is passing a curve, and so
sure. I mean, it's possible.
It's probably going to equalize in terms of the actual solar infiltration through the glass.
I would be surprised if it did, but I can't say for sure, so I will choose to accept that.
So here's a tough question. Paul, after the greenhouse is built, how will you determine the effectiveness of each of your 7 improvements on Mike's design? Well, first of all, there's 7 improvements over a standard design. The first 3 are Mike's. Right. And then the 4th one is one that I talked with Mike about before he died. And then the rest are mine. And it's like, and the answer to that question is I won't be able to. Yeah. I mean, it's like they're all going to be tied together. But if the whole thing sucks, then we'll know that we clearly didn't do enough. Right. But I kind of feel like if it works awesome, then it's like, all right, what can we cut out in a future design? And I would like to think that a lot of the people that are supporting the Kickstarter are going to go out and try and build their own, and then they're going to have their variations of what they tried and didn't try and what they measured and didn't measure, and then we're going to build our knowledge that way. Yeah. So, but the thing is that everything that's being called passive right now, I haven't seen one that actually is passive. Right. They're just throwing. That's why we say truly passive. I mean, hats off. Those guys are blazing some amazing trails, which is super cool and amazing and awesome. I'm glad they're doing it. And I think, I wish that they would use a word like maybe passive-ish or almost passive or something, but
extremely low energy or something.
Yeah, and it's like, but all right, they said that it was passive. So if I'm going to be passiver, then what can I say besides truly passive? I guess really. Right. So I kind of don't want to poop on what they've done, because basically they're following the work of Don Stevens. Yeah. So years ago, Don Stevens did a bunch of experiments in the space. Now all these greenhouses are doing this using the Don Stevens technique, which was annualized geosolar, and it's kind of like, but yeah, lots of fans are involved. Powerful fans. So, all right, the question is how will we determine the effectiveness of each?
It's possible that we could shut the gray water system off and that we could plug the thermal wells
True.
and then you would evaluate the wofati aspect of it. It's possible that you